Phil Vischer. Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Christian Taylor.
Hey, Phil.
Who is very orange.
I am, and I'm thinking that it doesn't look so great. Like, the orange color is a little much.
Orange and TV, they just go hand in hand. And Skye,
hi, Phil.
Who's very gray.
I'm blue-gray.
There is blue here,
That's a
if
shocker.
you can't see.
Yeah.
What's shocking about that?
That you're not wearing gray or black.
It is. You are wearing gray.
The jacket's gray.
Yeah. I want you to wear your Superman t-shirt. You have more than that in a while.
I have a couple of those.
It's time for that.
I got a request from Michelle Kennedy Harvey that her son would like me to sing the intro as Ken Ham.
Can you do that?
I don't.
Does he sound like Archibald Asparagus?
He's Australian, and I don't really do Australian's tricky because it's so close to British that it's like trying to walk on a steeply sloped hill sideways, and you just keep sliding down, and the bottom is British.
Right.
So it's like walking on the wall. You know, like, hey, mate, I put a shrimp on the barbie. It's got to go in that kind of direction, and it's tough to stay there. Right? See, it just goes British. It doesn't work. Oi, it's a podcast. What do you know? Oi, it's a podcast. And there's no video. Oi, it's a podcast. So lend an ear. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here. We'll talk to Skye and Christian too.
Hi, boys and girls.
But we don't got no evolution because it's not in Genesis. Oi, it's a podcast.
I don't think Ken Ham says oi all the time.
Done.
Yes, he says oi. Every other word is oi. Oi, it's a podcast. So let it hear. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right. That's not a knife. This is a knife. See, that's what... Because some people said Ken Ham won the debate because he sounds intellectual, because he's Australian. But I just think, this is a knife. I just think,
Crocodile Dundee.
Yeah, I immediately go to Crocodile Dundee, and that's not... That doesn't strike me
I was wondering
as
what you were
intellectual.
referencing.
Don't you remember Crocodile Dundee?
I do, but I remember the other guy who's much more famous who was killed in the heart by...
Crocodile Hunter.
Yeah.
Crocodile Hunter.
Steve Irwin.
Irwin.
Right. Look at these crocs.
Crikey.
Yeah.
Crikey. Oh, these crocs evolve not if you're Ken Ham Australian, only if you're Steve Irwin Australian. If you're Ken Ham Australian, they were hand-delivered by angels in their present form.
Steve Irwin was naturally selected off the planet, wasn't he?
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Oh.
Unfortunately.
That makes me sad.
Well,
It made me sad. He was fun.
He was fun. Isn't his daughter kind of shown up?
Yes, she took over.
Her name is Bindi, which is that thing that Hindi women will put on their
Really?
forehead. It's called a bindi.
That's the same name?
She was named after a dot?
Yeah.
Why do they put a dot on their forehead?
Oh, there's a whole lot. So we're not going to go there.
We can't go there.
A lot of
Today's
it's
show is
just-
brought to you
Now
by
I wanna
Skye
go there.
Jitani's new book, Futureville, Reimagining Your Tomorrow for Today Now.
How did that book...
Discover your
was it
purpose for
close?
today by reimagining tomorrow.
Have you bought your
Lord
copy
help us
of
all.
Futureville yet? Go out and buy it now. Stop listening to the podcast. Go buy Skye's book. It looks even better upside down.
And I will
Download
say,
it directly from Amazon.
And
I did finish reading it.
Yeah,
and it
you
was
liked it?
worth the
it's
read.
worth it. And What's in the Bible, DVD 13,
That was almost Buck Denver.
is now in stores. So get What's in the Bible. Kids, it's time to get What's in the Bible so you can learn what's in the Bible and you will be smart.
You know what I just realized? We've never brought your puppets on the podcast.
No,
That would be fun.
I don't know if that would be
Don't
fun.
you think that would be
I don't
fun?
know that
Well,
would-
it's only fun for the people who are watching it.
I don't know if that would be fun. Big news. Next week, there will be no podcast. It's spring break. We're all out of town, and I'm not going to try to figure out how to make one. Well, do you know where I'm going? I'm taking my daughter and my wife.
To Walt Disney
my
World.
oldest daughter. No, that was my first choice. That was my.
That's usually where you
how
take
about
them.
Disney World. No? Oh. We're going to the Grand Canyon.
Oh.
That sounds exciting.
Amanda's been on my case about wanting to go to the Grand
Jeremy,
Canyon.
too.
Yeah, so
Maybe we should all go with them.
We're going to spend 4 or 5 days in Phoenix.
Are you
and
doing
then
a
also
camper?
Go up to, no,
Don't get too close.
Are you
I'm not
driving?
doing a camper. You know my wife.
I know.
You think she wants to spend a week
No.
in a camper?
No.
No.
But you know what? You
Don't
could
get too
drive.
close. Yeah.
You could drive in the camper and then stay in a hotel. See, it's
Why
sort
would
of
I
like
wanna do that?
because you're creating a family experience and memory. You could go along Route 66 from Chicago to the Grand Canyon in an RV, and then you would feel like it was like the 60s.
You know what you
That
should
sounds
do?
like a terrible idea.
Last year, my dad hiked down the Grand Canyon and all the way back up.
Did he?
He's 70.
Wow.
That's pretty crazy.
By
So
himself? or
well, it's
with
a group thing.
with
It's
a
like
padre?
it's like a 3-day trek
Posse.
where you go down one day, you stay down there for a day, and then you hike up.
Okay.
That's
But
pretty
he
cool.
said it was remarkable because you rarely get to go. Everyone
Right.
sees it from the top, but
Right.
you don't often
see it from
right.
the bottom
So you should-
unless you fall while seeing it from the top.
which is a
Which is a bad way to see it.
now
see
I
it
get
very
this
briefly.
perspective. That's different. Okay.
I'm going to California.
You are?
Yes,
Where?
for a whole week.
Where to?
Southern California, at San Clemente, which is above San Diego
Yeah,
and below
yeah.
LA, and just to be with my 17-year-old who actually wants to spend time with me
Where is he?
right now at
Yeah.
school.
Oh, you're 17-year-old. Okay, right. You're 17-year-old. So you're
Yes.
going. You don't have to go there to spend time with him.
No. He
'Cause he's
wanted
not
me to
there.
take him, and
He's here.
I asked him, of all the things to do in Southern California, what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Can you guess what he wanted to do? The one thing, all he wants to do.
Disneyland,
No.
Legoland,
Nope.
SeaWorld.
Yes.
Really?
SeaWorld.
He wants to go to
Why?
SeaWorld?
I was like,
Is he
what?
trying to get in there before they have to get rid of all the orcas?
Yeah.
I have I'm like, don't you know they kill people there?
Take
What?
him. Go to La Jolla.
Yes,
and
I love
take
La Jolla.
him-
The seals.
Isn't that Michael
Yeah,
Jackson's
go,
sister?
go sea kayaking. Go sea kayaking in La Jolla. I did that with my kids.
Really?
Yes, you can take a sea kayak out on a little tour, and there's caves. There's sea caves that you can go into if the tide is right.
Oh, I totally want to do that.
And we had seals coming up to our kayaks. There was one seal like following us around
I'm
playing
doing that.
with us. It
I'm
was
doing
fun.
that.
Go sea kayaking.
That sounds fun.
Sea
Yeah.
kayaking in La Jolla. Okay, good night, everyone. See you next week.
This is your vacation tips by Phil.
Phil Vischer vacation guide.
I saw. Have you seen any movies? There's a movie coming out on Friday that's getting
Oh,
a little
yeah,
bit of
yeah,
attention,
yeah.
although it'll be out by the time
Is
you
it
watch
Noah?
this. Yes.
Oh, no, I haven't seen it. Have you?
No. Well, no, it's not out yet. And I
Well,
don't.
I figured, you're so
I'm not
important and
on-
famous.
No, I'm not on that list.
Okay.
The reactions appear to be mixed-ish. It's got like 71% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, so generally positive.
Well, it is Russell Crowe, after all.
It is Russell Crowe and it's Darren Aronofsky, and critics love Darren Aronofsky.
It's Emma Watson.
And Emma Watson. Boys love her.
Emma Watson.
Harry Potter.
She's not.
Yes, she is.
She is.
Hermione.
She's
What is she?
She's Hermione.
she's the daughter.
I know she's Hermione. What is she in Noah?
She's a daughter.
She's a daughter-in-law.
Oh, she is? Okay.
Yeah.
Because Jennifer
daughter-in-law.
Connelly is
she is.
Noah's wife.
I just always, for some reason, when I read Genesis, I just imagine everybody's really ugly.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, I mean,
Not like Jennifer Connelly and
right, and Emma Watson.
Yeah.
I just don't see that.
And Noah is 500 years old when the story starts.
When they age
he
that
doesn't
much,
look-
how do they age? Like, do the 100-year-olds
By
today?
the time you're 400, you kind of look like one of those Chinese dogs with all the skin hanging off of them. What are those?
Shar-Pei.
Yeah, you look like a
Shar-Peis.
Shar-Pei. So Noah would have looked like 500. You're a Shar-Pei.
No, but this is a serious question. Do you
know.
think they aged relatively or actually?
I don't know. Skye, you're a theologian.
I don't know, but I'm guessing if you're 500 years old, you need some level of strength and stamina to build an ark. So
yeah.
That is a good point.
I'm assuming he wasn't like a Shar-Pei.
Ark building.
He has a point there.
Yeah, because like if you step on your skin on the way while you're carrying something heavy, because it's,
Yeah, it's not like Biggest Loser,
drooping.
where they have all that extra skin. at
Are
the
you
end
going
of
to
the
see
show.
it? Do you care?
Do they have a lot of extra skin?
When you
Are you gonna see
when
it?
you are morbidly obese and you
Yeah.
lose a lot of weight, you have all this extra skin that often
I
has
wondered
to be
about that
removed.
because
Yeah.
as I lose
Right.
all this weight, what am I going to do?
Right, and that's where the Russians get their handbags. Are you going to see?
Wow.
Are you going to see Noah? Do you care?
I maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, it's one of those that I'd probably rent.
Yeah, I'm not going
I'm
to go
not
to the
sure
movie
I'm gonna
theater.
go to theater.
Okay.
Unless there's like a group outing or something.
What about Peabody and Sherman?
Nah.
Yes. I'm interested in that.
I went and saw it by myself.
Oh, good. What'd you
This
think?
is what Phil does.
Yeah, it was research. It was research. I had to do it for research because it's animation and also because it's DreamWorks. And so some of my friends, that now technically are employees of DreamWorks, said, "So have you seen
And-
Peabody and Sherman? It's really good. You should go see it." 'cause
Was it
You're
really
also
good?
an addict.
we all saw it together.
You are.
Was it?
I
Was
can
it?
stop anytime.
Was it any good?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's not bad.
Is it
This is
$10
Jerry
good?
Seinfeld, right?
Is it $10?
Is it
Or is it
$50
Stephen
good for my
Colbert?
whole family?
50? No.
I didn't think
Well,
so.
what is? I mean,
Exactly.
that's really subjective. Like Avengers, is that $50 good for your whole family?
No.
Probably not.
That's why
What was the
no
last
family's
movie?
going.
Harry
now.
Potter. Is that like
No.
What was the last movie you took your whole family to?
Frozen.
Frozen was $50.
Apparently it was. No, we do like a matinee or a Groupon or something.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to
I would take your
way too long.
a Peabody and Sherman is $25 matinee good for your whole family.
Is it?
Or 30 or whatever it is. I think it might be. It's interesting though because it reminded me of Cosmos.
Oh no.
Oh gosh, here we go
All
again.
roads lead back to Cosmos.
And it reminded me of Cosmos because they're going back in time travel, the Wayback Machine. Because Peabody, Peabody is the dog. Mr. Peabody is the dog.
Which is who? Who plays him?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
A guy.
It's animated.
I know, but isn't one of them Jerry Seinfeld or Stephen
No.
Colbert?
No. Oh, Stephen Colbert plays a side character.
Oh, he's a side character.
Yeah, but
okay.
that's not relevant. But Mr. Peabody is a genius dog. He's an inventor, He invented the Wayback Machine, and he knows everything about everything. But in the movie, he really comes across as kind of almost like a Carl Sagan type, then promoting the benefits of science, and we, think about everything scientifically.
Are you saying there's a
Sherman.
conspiracy
No,
these
I'm
days?
not saying there's a conspiracy. But then they go back in time.
Was it funded by Seth MacFarlane?
They go back in time, and they primarily, like the good people that they meet are primarily famous scientists. So you meet Da Vinci and you meet Newton.
Yeah.
You don't meet Augustine. You don't meet Luther. You don't meet. So in fact, the only religious visibility is when they go back to ancient Egypt, and the Egyptians want to kill and disembowel the girl if the
Disembalm?
well
Disembodied.
Disembowel.
disembowel. Yeah, embalm, not
Embalm,
disembowel. That's
right.
when you try to oops, I embalmed the wrong guy.
Yeah.
I need to get all my fluid back. That's not legal. So it just felt a bit like the only. Stay with me. Look at me.
I'm trying.
Look at me. Look at me.
Okay, we're working on it.
It felt a little bit like a religion is something that you find way, way in the past, and it makes people do unreasonable things. Science is what makes people reasonable.
Are you looking for things
Yeah.
to get upset about now?
Yeah.
I think you are.
Yeah, because you know why?
Why?
Because if you have a podcast, that's what you're supposed to do.
You look for things.
I read A Dummy's Guide to Podcasting, and it said rule number 1, look for things to be cranky about.
Well, you know what? It's interesting though. You are like the lone voice crying in the wilderness because you're the only one that's really paying attention to this. And I think people just from the Facebook posts, I think people are grateful because not all of us have the time that you do to go and watch movies or go to Disney World by ourselves or to watch TV, and so we don't have time to.
Partly just because I've been watching Cosmos, I'm intrigued at how popular media portrays science versus religion.
Right.
And I just have to say, as good as Peabody and Sherman was, it portrays science in a very good light, and religion is either ignored or it's kind of creepy.
But let's think about practically. You're a filmmaker.
Yeah? What's your point,
Think about how
Skye?
difficult it is to portray religion positively because it's going to be interpreted.
It's not hard.
Yes, it is.
Filmmakers used to do it all the time.
But the problem-
the priests were always noble characters
in a
the
pluralistic
1930s and
in
40s.
a pluralistic society, though, it could be interpreted as an endorsement of a particular
we were
faith.
still pluralistic in the 1930s and 40s.
Yeah, but not as pluralistic.
Well, I will say that I watched Naked and Afraid last night.
What is that?
and-
What? What is that?
What?
Oh, is that reality show where
You're not
Yes.
saying you were naked and afraid.
I
they
felt
dump-
like I was
they
naked and
dump
afraid.
people in the wild without
Yeah.
clothes?
Yeah, and the only
then try to
reason.
film them without showing anything?
Yep. The only reason I ended up watching it is because I got
Stupidest thing
caught
ever.
one time when I was by myself in a hotel trying to find something to watch, and I watched
And you
it
were
for
naked and afraid?
I watched for 2 minutes, and then I was like, I just got sucked in immediately, and I
Yeah.
tweeted about it or I put it on my Facebook, and my family saw it. And then those boys went crazy, and they thought it was
Yeah.
like this greatest survival show. And this guy last night was a Mormon. And they showed him. I thought they were going to make
naked
fun of him
woman?
because he was, very prayerful and begging God's, mercy and all of that.
Yeah, and asking God to make him clothes.
No,
like he did
asking
Adam
God
and
to
Eve.
give him food and to
Okay.
help him survive. And so I really did think that they were going to make fun of him and make him look horrible, but they actually didn't. And you thought in the beginning that he was going to be this outrageous character, but he truly was collaborative with this woman that completely disagreed with his whole philosophy of life and everything else.
Yeah.
And when he prayed for food and asked God to lead him to the
Yeah.
food, he found the food. And you can't make that stuff up.
Found the
And
food.
and they all showed it, all sides, and in the end, they were the most collaborative, positive group of survivors that I've ever seen on there. And so they portrayed it positively. I've never seen
But
that.
that's reality TV.
Okay, so now we're adding an asterisk.
no.
Reality TV is not real.
I
You
know,
that?
but when you have religious,
they edit the stories to
I
make
know,
them
but
what
when
they
you
want
have
them to be.
That is
religiously
true.
identified people in reality TV, they're sort of responsible for their own portrayal. If they're a jerk, they're going to be portrayed as a jerk. If they're kind and considerate and thoughtful, and then they will.
Yeah.
But when you're scripting a story like Cosmos TV
Right.
show or
Right.
Peabody and Sherman,
You have complete control.
you have complete control, and so
So you paint the world as
The way you
want
want
it
it to
to
see.
be.
Well, all I'm
which
saying is I can understand
science great, religion kind of creepy.
Forget Cosmos for a second. Like Peabody, I can understand
Well,
why.
religion, it's even more, religion is bad.
I can understand why
didn't say that.
family cartoon like Peabody and Sherman would
Yeah.
want to just stay away from religious stuff.
Right.
Because it just complicates
Right.
everything. I think that's more the issue than they're trying to make religion bad by showing Egyptians who want to disembowel. Now you got me
We
all
already went over
confused.
this. It's disembowel.
Disembowel.
Did you hear about the movie God Isn't Dead?
Yes.
I have not
the
heard that.
surprise hit of the weekend.
Tell me about that.
Well, it's a Christian film. I don't know who made it. I don't know where it came
Hey,
from.
we were talking about it at the office
It's
the other day.
Pureflix released it.
It's based on a book that a guy wrote.
Oh, is
that-
it?
It's basic. I saw some of it, and it's a movie that's made for youth groups.
Yeah, it's a youth group
To
movie.
scare people about going to secular universities where your philosophy professor is going to make you sign a page on the first day of class saying God is dead, which
But
is...
they beat him. They defeat him. They defeat the evil
So that really happened?
philosophy
No.
professor.
I took philosophy at a secular university, and it was never like that. They just, some Christians have... It's like Red State Christian Youth Group boogeymen stuff, that you're going to go to
What?
a state university.
Yeah, but
and-
it did 10 million opening weekend, or 9 million. It's the surprise hit of the weekend. It's crazy.
Who's
So,
watching it?
A lot of youth groups, I guess.
I guess.
I don't know. It's crazy.
Go see
I
that,
may
Phil.
need to go see it, just
Yeah.
check it out, but I have a feeling
Our friend,
it might be a bit disturbing.
Our friend Drew Dick from CT, my colleague, he saw it, and he also knows the guy who wrote the book and kind of the whole
Oh.
background on the story.
Well, we'll
So
get him over
Well,
here.
let's have him come to the podcast.
Okay.
Then we can have a
I
guest.
saw one other movie over the weekend.
What was that?
Finally, the Grand Budapest Hotel.
oh, yeah.
Oh, how was that?
Speaking of a movie that I actually wanted to see,
the commercials look very entertaining.
yeah, it's good. It's
It
really,
is real-
If you're a
it
Wes
could-
Anderson
I was
fan.
thinking
Are you a
it-
Wes Anderson fan?
I don't know what else he's done. I'm not very familiar with my guess. What
then
else
you
does
probably
he
won't
do?
like it unless you're a Wes Anderson fan.
Okay, well, I don't know if I'm a fan or not.
Moonrise Kingdom,
Haven't seen it.
Royal Tenenbaums,
Nope.
Rushmore.
Oh, I did see the Royal Tenenbaums.
Okay.
So that's when I saw the commercials. I thought this is either going to be really funny or it's going to be really horrible, which is the same about the Royal Tenenbaums. You either hate it,
Yeah, right.
or you love it.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's one of the only, really, Wes Anderson and the Coen brothers are the only filmmakers today that are given reasonably large budgets to make literally whatever they want. It may be Martin Scorsese, maybe, but they're really the only real artists still allowed to make commercial-sized films.
Okay.
And it's incredible. And he's got so many friends that show up in it because everyone who works with him on a film, they become friends. And so there's all these cameos of guys showing up in bizarre little parts. And it's very funny. It's not
Is it appropriate?
for who? It's rated R. It's appropriate
Okay.
for who?
Well, I guess you
Your
wouldn't.
kids, no.
Okay.
You probably, if you're watching Naked and Afraid, yes, it's probably appropriate for you.
Well, they do like blur out everything.
There's a tiny bit
and
of
there's
nudity,
no sex.
and there's some kind of startling violence here and there, but kind of dark comedy violence. But it's just,
And the language is probably bad.
Oh, it's not super terrific.
Okay.
But it's just so good. 'Cause
What's so good about it then?
It's such
quite
an
an endorsement
artistic
from-
expression. Well, I mean, Moonrise Kingdom was probably my favorite film last year.
I didn't
or
see
2
that.
years ago.
Okay, so can you just give us the tagline of the story?
For Budapest?
Yeah.
No, his stories don't have taglines.
Oh.
They're impossible to tag.
It's
Okay.
about a hotel.
It's the story of a concierge
Okay.
at a hotel.
From his point of view, it's sort of how he sees life and experiences life.
Kind of. Well, no, they're all really. The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou is another one of his films. He makes miniature worlds, and he loves to build everything and then shoot entirely within this world that looks like it could be on somebody's dresser. And in this case, it's a hotel. And he also did The Fabulous Mr. Fox, the animated film, as kind of a departure.
I like that one.
So there's just, it's highly eccentric. It's like when I was in high school and college, my favorite filmmaker was Terry Gilliam, who is also highly eccentric. But Terry Gilliam refuses to allow himself to tell a story with a conventional ending because he thinks it's stupid. And as a result, none of his films are commercially successful, and he has a hard time getting money to make more films. So he's kind of a tragic figure in filmmaking because filmmakers absolutely love him, and they love the creativity of his vision. His film Brazil is a lot of people's favorite movie. But because they don't end well, audiences don't like
they
them.
don't want to see it.
Wes Anderson has actually been able to overcome that, and the Coen brothers as well, and tell very eccentric stories that just are commercial enough that they work, and then studios give them money to make more.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Everyone else with a really strong artistic vision has, for the most part, they're either making $2 million movies or they've gone to TV, and they're just pitching ideas to HBO and Showtime.
And Netflix.
Except for the Coen brothers and Wes Anderson.
All right, so Phil's movie.
Okay, movie review is
Yeah,
now
that's
over.
The movies.
What?
Okay. We're done talking about the movies. Michelle Kenny Harvey, who asked me to sing the theme song as Ken Ham, also said she would love to hear your thoughts, us thoughts, on the World Vision same-sex marriage policy decision.
You better fill us all in.
Did you read that article?
Yes,
I
from,
did,
From
but-
Christianity Today, I might add.
Yes, first reported by Christianity Today. World Vision's American branch will no longer require its more than 1,100 employees to restrict their sexual activity to marriage between one man and one woman. Abstinence outside of marriage remains a rule, but a policy change announced yesterday as we record this, will now permit gay Christians in legal same-sex marriages to be employed at one of America's largest Christian charities. World Vision's board was not unanimous, acknowledged Richard Stearns, the head of the organization, but was overwhelmingly in favor of the change. Changing the employee conduct policy to allow someone in a same-sex marriage who is a professed believer in Jesus Christ to work for us makes our policy more consistent with our practice on other divisive issues, he said. It also allows us to treat all our employees the same way, abstinence outside of marriage and fidelity within marriage. World Vision now has a staff from more than 50 denominations, a handful of which have sanctioned same-sex marriages or unions in recent years, including the United Church of Christ, the Episcopal Church, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, and the Presbyterian Church USA. Meanwhile, it's now legal in 17 states plus the District of Columbia. So Stearns said World Vision's board has faced a new question in recent years. What do we do about someone who applies for a job at World Vision who is in a legal same-sex marriage that may have been sanctioned and performed by their church? Do we deny them employment? Under our old conduct policy, that would have been a violation. The new policy will not exclude someone from employment if they are in a legal same-sex marriage. Denominations disagree on many things, on divorce and remarriage, modes of baptism, women in leadership roles in the church, beliefs on evolution, etc. So our practice has always been to defer to the authority and autonomy of local churches and denominational bodies on matters of doctrine that go beyond the Apostles' Creed and our statement of faith. So they are saying they defer to the local church on these other matters. This is not about compromising the authority of Scripture. People can say Scripture is very clear on this issue, and my answer is, this is Stearns talking, well, ask all the theologians and denominations that disagree with that statement. The church is divided on this issue, and we are not the local church. We are an operational organization uniting Christians around a common mission to serve the poor in the name of Christ. So their position is that they are not going to take sides on this issue, and therefore they will allow, if you are married, in a same-sex marriage that was sanctioned legally, that you can be an employee.
So the key here is understanding that World Vision is a parachurch relief organization. They're not a church, and therefore they're sidestepping the issue.
Are they the church?
Well,
are parachurch organizations part of the church?
This is a dicey question.
I think this is a very significant decision because of what it means for other parachurch organizations, but I can understand where they are for me, the big shift here is they're now taking the issue of same-sex marriage and moving it from a definitive Christian belief about marriage to putting it into the category of Christian liberty.
Right.
That it's something like mode of baptism or women in leadership, that we're not going to break fellowship over this.
Right.
Which is a pretty significant move.
Right.
But it's interesting because I'm guessing their donor base is largely evangelical Christians. So it's going to be interesting, I think, to see if
the message board, the comments on Christianity Today after that story was posted have just lit up. And they are about 90% negative. I'm just going to read a few. I'm fairly certain the Great Commission didn't end with, and if you need to sin along the way, that's cool. How can you argue that you're all for unity when you're choosing one side in a debate? You sold out. Just be a man and admit it. More like worldly vision.
Oh, I'm so sad that Christians are responding this way.
Here's another one. Goodbye, world vision. We'll pray for you. Another one. I can no longer, with a clear conscience, support World Vision in any way.
Yeah, that's what I
will
wondered.
no longer be able to support the organization after today's announcement. Richard Stearns needs to lead now by resigning immediately. And all board members that have promoted the idea of unity through compromising or promoting gay Christianity also need to resign immediately. Another one. My decades as a World Vision supporter began in high school. This is shocking, and I will never again consider supporting World Vision.
So, hold on. Let's back up for a second, because he had that statement in there about how the church or churches are divided over all kinds of issues: mode of baptism, women in leadership, evolution, creationism. You can go on through the list.
Transubstantiation.
I remember back in college we did this paper about this church. I think it was in Ohio a few centuries ago. That the church split over the design of the communion table. Honestly, because it didn't have legs, and therefore it looked more like an altar, which is Roman Catholic, rather than having legs, which is more Protestant. It's a true table rather than an altar.
The church split
over this. So the point of it is, in different times, in different cultures, in different places.
Because Jesus had legs.
Well, no, because
not like the Pope, who has you can't see his legs.
There you go. That's the reason. My point is that in different times and different places in the church, people have thought of an issue as this is absolutely the most important, essential issue. For a while, it was eschatology, your view of the end times. So now, a whole generation of Christians have been told what you think about gay marriage and homosexuality is the most definitive issue. And what World Vision, I was about to say World Relief, but it's World Vision.
Yes.
And you thought that was going to be your
what
problem.
World Vision has done is basically said, no, we're going to move this into the category of just another thing that Christians disagree about that's non-essential. And that's what's freaking people out, I think.
Yeah.
But you ask 25, 50 years from now, how is the church going to think about this issue? Are we going to think about the way we do communion table design?
This is not about a disagreement over non-essentials. This is about allowing grave sin to enter into the church. Obviously defining World Vision as a church.
This reminds me of what you said about a year ago, I think, when we started this podcast. Are we almost to episode 100?
That's almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Do you know how many weeks there are in a year?
No, I hadn't paid attention. I forgot that momentarily. It's been 2 years.
Almost in May.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so 2 years ago, I remember you basically saying, because we've been talking about the gay issue now for 2 years straight.
And we haven't solved it. What's going on?
But anyway,
I feel like a failure.
You said basically the horse is out of the barn. Like this,
And the cat is out of the bag.
and the cat is out of the bag. More like the horse is out of the barn.
In a bag?
You can't.
Big bag.
You
Big
can't
bag.
pull it back anyway because the whole issue of gay marriage is it's over with. Like that debate is over. We
Right.
need to be talking about our rights as Christians and Christian groups, and that doesn't necessarily apply here. But the horse is out of the barn.
Well, yeah, you're right.
In the same way.
I still
But
think
what stand do churches need to take, and then parachurch organizations, which is a whole different issue?
that I think is the much more interesting part of this story because the American church, the evangelical American church, is more unified through our parachurch ministries than we are through our denominations. So particular denominations are debating this issue and coming to their own conclusions. Some that they listed there have said, yeah, let's ordain gay priests or pastors and let's have same-sex marriage, that's fine. Others on the more conservative end are saying, absolutely not, we won't change that. But what really unites evangelicalism are the parachurch ministries.
What are some name them?
Like World Vision, Campus Crusade for Christ, or CRU as it's now
Compassion
known.
International.
Compassion International,
World Relief.
Christianity Today, World Relief. And then our colleges and universities, like a Wheaton College, which is not denominationally connected. It's an independent school. So when you look at World Vision and what they've done and moving this issue to the category of Christian liberty, that sets the pattern for all these other groups for how they're going to handle it. And so that I think is a very significant move in what it
Which
represents
is probably
for
what
the
they're
future.
hoping
How is
to happen.
that going to be received, do you think?
I don't think it's going to be received well in the short term.
So
But I'm hearing you say in the long term, you think that this may be the communion table or altar issue?
I don't know how long it's going to take. I wouldn't go that far. I would say it's going to be more like women in ministry. There are some denominations that affirm that and some that deny
and
that.
some that have split over it.
Some that have split over, but they will cooperate with each other in things like relief, campus ministry, publishing, things like that. And if that becomes the norm, then I think that...
Now, no one
that
has a
was where we're gonna
problem
go.
if a woman was leading World Vision.
Right, because it's a parachurch.
Right, we don't have that problem
Right.
because we make that distinction. Even the conservatives would make that distinction and say, well, that's different. I can't have a senior pastor who's a woman, but your ministry could have a CEO who's a woman. We make that distinction, but I can't figure out how if you're a ministry that feeds the poor and you have a Christian who wants to be a part of that and wants to help out and says, by the way, my denomination is in favor of gay marriage and I was married in my denomination, to a same-sex partner, can I help you feed the poor? You'd say no.
Well, here's the real issue, I
No,
think,
you
behind
can't.
this story. The real issue is what World Relief is saying is that you can be gay, you can be in a same-sex marriage, you can affirm homosexuality and be a Christian. I think that's what people are freaking out about.
Okay.
So before, or in some conservative or even fundamentalist circles, they would say, if you affirm gay marriage, if you are gay, if you affirm homosexuality, you are outside the kingdom of God. You cannot be a Christian.
We have to break communion with you.
Exactly. So what World Vision is saying is, no, we can disagree on this issue and still be in Christian fellowship. And you can be a true believer and have this view of human sexuality.
So are they making a larger statement than they acknowledge that they're making?
I think they are. And I can understand why some people are flipping out about it. But it all comes down to not just what do you think on human sexuality and marriage, but what do you think qualifies as putting you off the reservation as a Christian?
Right.
But there are a group of people, a smaller group of people that say you're off the reservation as a Christian. There is a growing body of Christians that are saying those people are the ones that are off the reservation.
Right. The demographics, especially among younger evangelicals, are overwhelmingly in favor of same-sex marriage. So it's pretty clear where the culture is going, even within the church and within evangelicalism. But how you handle that,
right?
is
And it's
be
interesting.
tough.
And you pointed this out that one of the board members is a pastor of a megachurch in Minnesota who led his megachurch to split with the Presbyterian Church because of the issue of celibacy. In homosexuality.
and he's conservative on the issue.
And he's conservative, yes.
Right.
So he left his denomination over this issue, but he voted in favor of it for World Vision. So
Right.
he's basically making the distinction. Church should not go there, but this isn't a church.
Right.
And this is a different matter.
Right.
And that's interesting.
Yeah, it gets very gray and muddled, and so on one side you go, all right, World Relief, you're there to help the poor, and World Relief, World Vision. I'm sorry, World Relief. I have friends there. I'm confusing these two things.
World Relief has not changed their policy.
No, they haven't. World Vision is not there to disciple people. It's not there to administer sacraments. It's not there to be a church or preach the word. They're there to give relief and development aid and help the poor and rescue people in tragic situations around the world. And that's something that we can all rally around. Now, the larger question would be, all right, then, World Vision, can you be a devout Muslim
Right.
and be part of World
That's a great
World
question.
Vision?
Let's ask him.
According to their statement now or their policy now, they would say
Currently,
no.
no.
You need to affirm the Apostles'
Right.
Creed.
So they are clearly saying, they're saying you can affirm the Apostles' Creed. Saying what it takes to be a Christian is to affirm the Apostles' Creed.
And whatever their statement of faith is.
Okay.
They have a statement
They
of
have
faith.
a separate statement
Yes.
other than the Apostles' Creed?
Yes.
But it's not about gay marriage.
Right. What they're doing is saying that you can now be a faithful Christian and be in a homosexual relationship. A monogamous homosexual
what they're
marriage.
literally saying is we're not going to take a position on that. We're going to let denominations decide. What's implicit in that is we are, for our mission, moving that to the category of non-essentials.
Exactly.
Well, what I
That's kind of
I
big.
think is tricky and why there are comments as you read
Yeah.
is I don't know that everyday Joes like me understand the difference between a church and a parachurch organization. And so we kind of lump it all together as, one big Christian umbrella. And I
Right.
think, the nuances that you guys are talking about sort of go over most people's heads.
Well, I think that's fair because in the long run, as I was trying to say earlier, where these parachurch ministries go with their policy is probably going to be pointing more and more to where the church goes with its own stance on
Which
these
church?
things. Well, the denominations. And there's so many independent
I'm pretty
churches
sure
now.
Westboro Baptist is against it.
Clearly. But there's so many large independent megachurches that are not
Right,
denominationally
they just
affiliated.
write their own statement of faith.
Exactly. So they often will take the model of what parachurches do as their own. So I've been a part of non-denominational churches that are very influenced, for example, by Campus Crusade for Christ or Cru. And, Cru doesn't take, or at least when I was with them, they didn't take a stance on women teaching the Bible or in leadership. They were a parachurch. They didn't have to take a stance on that. And so a lot of people who came through that ministry and ended up in ministry or churches took a lot of Cru's values and said, well, we'll make evangelism and missions forefront and put everything else down the list.
Right.
So as these parachurch ministries that a lot of young people engage clarify their policy on same-sex marriage, that's going to influence a lot of younger evangelicals, and those then come into the church and into
Right,
leadership positions.
right.
And
So when I first read the story, my reaction kind of was, okay, that doesn't seem like a big deal. It's just a policy change. It's kind of interesting, but they're not doing evangelism. They're not preaching in the pulpit. They're passing out rice. And anybody who wants to pass out rice should be able to pass out rice. And then I started reading the comments. And I was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Okay, clearly I'm I'm in a minority unless just the other people that think this isn't a big deal aren't leaving any comments. But the more I think about it, it's like, okay, it's a bigger deal than my first reaction. There is something substantive that's happening there that is going to create a lot of conversation. What I don't like about a lot of the comments is they seem to be heavily influenced just by culture war.
Right.
In that, wait a minute, you're giving ground. You are yielding. We're fighting a battle here against the gay agenda, and you're giving in. And that's going to make it harder for all of us to resist, the evil, and that's concerning. Whenever it goes to culture war, it's concerning. But there is a legitimate So you are saying, as a fairly influential organization, that you're moving this into a different bucket than where it's historically been. And people now have to wrestle with, if someone comes up to their pastor and says, well, World Vision has decided it's not a big deal, so why are we still saying it's a big deal?
Yeah.
That's going to create some interesting conversations.
Well, and it seems like to me, World Vision understood that it was going to make this big, huge ripple because they went to a lot of pains to specifically explain.
If you read this online, it's a 5-page exclusive story that was given to Christianity Today.
They knew
so
what
they were
doing.
trying to get ahead of it by doing enough interviews and enough quotes that they can really explain their position. So it'll be interesting to see what the fallout is.
I'm sad. You're right. It does have this culture war feel in those comments.
Yeah.
But I'm sad that as Christians, we respond that way, period. In a vitriolic...
What we've been trained to for 30 years.
But it's not right. We need to stop that.
It's not right. Okay, what do you guys think? Are you gonna? It really bothers me that people say, "Wow, this Christian organization is doing wonderful work with the poor. I'm going to pull my money away from them."
Yeah.
Because they're not taking the stand I want them to take on an issue that clearly has nothing to do with the poor. That's what the one board member said, is we had to decide what is the core mission of this organization and how does this issue impact that core mission, as opposed to his own megachurch where he said that our core mission, will not allow me to endorse same-sex marriage.
Right.
The same guy on the board of this organization says,
it's a different playground.
I don't think we need to.
This is the slippery slope, though, because you could also argue.
Did you just say slippery
I
slope?
did say slippery slope.
Man,
I did. Because you could
slippery
also
slope.
argue the core mission of World Vision is not evangelization.
Right.
So
therefore, why do you need to be a Christian?
Why do you need to be a Christian if you're handing out rice?
Right. Well, yeah, which is a valid question. I mean, if you're in the field and you've got a bag of rice and a Muslim man comes up and says, "Can I give you a hand with that?" You're not going to say no because you're Muslim.
Well, and
you can't help me carry this bag of rice.
This policy change only applies to the United States.
That's true. Yes,
World Vision, not the other global.
Why does that make a difference?
Because I don't know the way it's totally structured, but they're independent World Vision organizations in different countries.
Right.
It's sort of like my denomination.
I would think the other countries would be a little bit more ahead of the ball than the American
Well,
ones.
some are more conservative.
Not in Africa.
Right. They're much more
It would
conservative.
be much more conservative.
So,
France maybe.
Well,
Ooh la la!
The argument of it's not core to our mission. Well, what is if you're a relief organization? Do you really need to be a Christian
even know.
at that point?
No, that's confusing.
I know.
What do you guys think? It's going to be interesting over the next couple of weeks. Next, we got one more story to talk about. So we had a conference. Skye put on a conference. Skye threw a party, and we all came.
A little bit of
We
a party,
did.
yeah.
Yeah, and it was called the Redeeming Work, right? Redeeming Work
Yeah,
Conference.
it was a Leadership Journal live event.
Leadership Journal Live, that's the magazine that Skye is associated with as some sort of
Executive editor.
I
or
was
something.
lying in bed the other night, and it kind of dawned on me. Like, I was sitting there thinking about being at this conference, and I thought, oh, redeeming work. Like, it just kind of dawned on me that, like, I don't know. I think I thought it
Was this before or after the conference?
was after.
It's not about looking for work that is redeeming.
It took me about 3
It's
days
about
that we
redeeming
were going to redeem the
work.
way we do work.
Right.
Yeah. What did you think it was?
I think it was just, this work is redeeming.
Oh.
I don't know. I can't
Redeeming
explain
work.
it. But
Okay,
it just
what was
dawned
the
on me
point,
what you meant,
Skye?
what the point was.
What was the point?
The point, it was largely a gathering for pastors.
Yeah.
I think it was probably 2/3
Which is why Christian and I were
And
there.
Christian and Phil.
And it's to give them a vision for the validation of the work of the people in their church Monday through Saturday, rather than just focusing on
if
Sunday.
they're missionaries.
No.
Or
What-
pastors?
It's lifting up a vision for a theology of vocation and vocational discipleship. So what does it mean to actually recognize that God has called his people into these different vocations in government or business or arts or wherever you may be, and that is a critical part of their identity and their life in Christ, and that work matters because Christ has called them to it. And what is our job then as church leaders?
How do you know Christ has called them to it?
And pastors.
Did we get into that?
We did. You missed that session, didn't you?
because I forgot my iPad and I had to drive all the way back to the suburbs to get it. So
and you needed that because your talk was on
it. It was a very interesting event because we had it at the Ignite Glass Studio.
It was awesome.
In the West Loop of Chicago. It was a working glass studio, and there's this big door behind us where we were speaking, where they had all the furnaces and where they were doing all that stuff. We actually rolled it up later in the afternoon.
Yeah,
and
it was cool.
It's cool to watch.
See all that going on, and some great content and great interaction. And we're doing another one in a couple.
Where?
The next one will be June 12th in Minneapolis at Art House North, where Sarah and Troy Groves have their ministry, so they're going to be a part of that. They've been on the podcast.
Why are you doing this? Why is it important? Why should we care? Why should we care?
And what I'd love for you to talk about a little bit is how it was born, and what you shared a lot about your own conviction as a pastor, and sort of, I thought that was neat. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, why we're doing it relates to that. We went around the country back in 2012, the editors of Leadership Journal, to talk to pastors from all different backgrounds to hear what do they need? What are they wrestling with? What are they struggling with? And one of the things we heard over and over and over again, and we've talked about on this podcast, which is, where are the young people? Why aren't 20-somethings engaging the church? And in our research, we found that most churches have organized themselves around the assumption that you're married and you have children. And so if you're delaying marriage like many young adults are.
I am and I do.
Yeah.
So why do I have a problem with that?
What?
I am married and I have children.
Yeah, it's fine for you because you're also not 25.
So what's the problem? Oh, okay.
So if your average age of marriage now for a man is 30 years old, first marriage.
Wow.
And of course, children.
What the heck?
What about for women? Do you know that?
It's about 28 or 29.
Wow.
So one of the reasons young people aren't engaging the church is because the church assumes you have a marriage and children, and that forms the structure for the discipleship.
That's what your life is all about.
Exactly. So we teach people how to be good fathers and mothers and husbands and wives, but we don't focus on where they spend the majority of their time, the majority of their life, which is at work.
How to teach them how to be good plumbers.
Right.
Is that what the church needs to
Yeah.
do?
Well, how to plumb in the name of Christ and to the glory of Christ. Yeah. So that's one thing we uncovered, and we started finding people who've been working in that area for a long time, again, largely parachurch ministries or foundations, and linked up with some friends and partners, and they are funding us to do a series of these events because they realize that despite all the work that's been done on the parachurch front, until pastors get a vision for the role of vocation in the church and in discipleship and in the lives of their people, it's not going to really go anywhere. And so that's what this is all about, is helping pastors recapture that. And the other side of it is the idea of vocation, a theology of vocation, was one of the pillars of the Protestant Reformation 500 years ago. And we can get into all that, but it's largely been lost for the last 100 years. We don't talk about it anymore, even in Protestant Christianity, because it's been consumed by the urgency of evangelization, that's all that matters. And while that's really important, it's not all that matters. And God does care about the whole world, not just rescuing people off of a sinking ship. So that's what the conference is really all about. It's helping pastors think through theologically, biblically, and practically, what does ministry look like that isn't just focused on evangelization and helping families.
But how did you personally begin to feel like there was a need for this?
This is a little bit about what I shared that Phil probably missed because he left.
I came in halfway through your talk.
Did you?
Yeah.
You may have missed the beginning. So I was on staff at my church, I think it's 7 years total. I was a teaching pastor, and that most weeks I was up front preaching or teaching at one of our sites. And then in January of 2008, I left that role to work full-time for CT. And for the first time since seminary, I was in the pew a lot more than the pulpit. And I started hearing the sermons very, very differently because I was working 40, 50 hours a week. I had a young family. I was traveling. And I kept hearing all this stuff from the pulpit about what I should be doing, either for the church or for the mission or whatever. And I'm realizing I don't have time to do all this. I'm busy. I have another calling. I have another job. And I started keeping track of my time, and I made a pie chart out of this. I showed it to the church about how much time do I spend in different activities. And what I concluded is at that stage of my life, about 12% of my time was actually flexible. So I could read a book, watch TV, go to a movie, do a podcast, stuff I had flexibility with. So what I realized is the church was trying to get me to give up some of that 12% of my time to do more of the stuff they felt was important. And the real win is when somebody gives up their career and switches to something which we consider ministry. And so a couple months after leaving my role at the church, I was asked to speak again because they needed someone to fill in the pulpit. And I did a sermon about this whole phenomenon, and I showed the pie chart up on the screen, and then I apologized to everybody because I realized in my years on staff, I wasn't focusing on your whole life. I was trying to get you to give up some of your 12% to do the things that I thought was important. And so it was my experience of actually not being in the pulpit as much that helped me open my eyes to the fact that this is the life most people lead, and they're looking to know, how does my faith and how does my communion with Christ impact all of my life, not just my free time and not just what I'm doing at the church. And so that's what began my journey down this road, which ended in writing Futureville, which is really all about this topic.
Futureville. Reimagining your tomorrow for Skye's 12% today. Is that the
something like that?
So discover your purpose for today by reimagining tomorrow. Yeah. Okay.
So that's part of my story, and how and there's
who else isn't there? Didn't Andy Crouch write about?
Indirectly, he wrote a book called Culture Making, which lifts up the value of our work in the world, but doesn't get directly at the vocation.
And then Os Guinness wrote about it.
Os Guinness wrote a book called The Call, which is really good. One of the best books on the topic for pastors and church leaders is called Work Matters by Tom Nelson. And he's a pastor in Kansas City.
He was interviewed, right? Oh, that was powerful.
He'll be live at the next event in Minneapolis.
Man,
we really need to get him on the podcast.
Yeah. Did you see that video? No. He did a video during the Redeeming Work Conference that was really powerful.
It was an interview I did with him.
Okay.
He's a phenomenal pastor, wonderful man, and he's been cultivating this vision of discipleship in his church for 15 years. But he planted his church 25 years ago. And 10 years into the ministry, got up in front of his congregation and apologized for what he calls pastoral malpractice. Because he said, I've been preparing you for what you're going to do with the minority of your life rather than preparing you for what God has called you to do for the majority of your life, which is work. And so they've rethought their language at the church. Their small
turned it
groups,
upside down.
And it's just life-giving what they've done. And I think it brings a lot of dignity and significance to people in the church who, for the most part, feel insignificant because they're not a pastor or a missionary or something like that.
Right.
Well, and the other thing that I loved about this conference was you kind of turned worship on its head. Mm-hmm. So, and you missed both of these as well.
I don't know
but
what's the matter with
they had a new Aaron Nyquist, and I don't know who the other members are of his band, but they have just been called to do this new liturgy thing, and it's incredibly powerful because it's very traditional liturgically, but it really focuses on exactly what you're talking about, but in a worshipful way, incorporating scripture and music.
Did they talk about plumbing?
Indirectly. So Aaron has created this thing called a new liturgy, and their downloads or discs that you can get on his website, aaronnyquist.com.
Or Bandcamp.
Bill, put up the URL.
We should have Aaron on the show, too. He's great.
Yeah, let's have Aaron on the show.
Awesome stuff. I actually bought that.
We'll have a live band.
There you go. But the liturgy for work is great because it's, 12, 15 minutes, and it's music and prayers and scripture readings. And you're supposed to listen to it on your way to work, in the car, in your headphones, on the train, whatever. And then you listen to the other half.
There's a reprise.
On your way home from work. And it helps you process, prepare your day and think through, how is God going to use me this day? What's that hymn that he uses? Take my hands.
It's all about your hands and these hands and using them for.
And let them be consecrated, Lord.
That's it. That's the whole philosophy of it. And and what I love in that one particular liturgy, because I've actually bought it and I've been doing it every day. And he calls you to pray for the specific people, your neighbors, the people that you're sitting in the cubicle next to, the people that are your enemies, which really got me. Not just saying some random prayer, but praying that God will bless them. And when you have somebody walk you through that intentionally, it changes your disposition and attitude toward the way you think about all those people and things. And so I find it changing me, but it only works for the day. You have to come back the next day and refocus. Yeah. So.
But it's a great tool. And
cool.
So if you're around, we're doing Minneapolis in June, and then we're going to be in Denver in September. And the date's not quite set yet. And then we're doing 3 more in 2015. So there'll be multiple opportunities around the country. I know we're going to be in Pittsburgh and Los Angeles.
Where do you go to find out more about that, Skye?
You can go to leadershipjournal.net and then click on the events.
It's kind of funny because I think I grew up with the idea that Christianity was something that you do very intentionally with certain portions of your day. Like, I'm going to do Christianity now. because I have an opportunity to witness or because I'm having my quiet time. This is when I do Christianity. And you kind of blow that apart and say, no, your whole day, your whole life, everything you do, you are doing Christianly.
Right.
And your walk with Jesus manifests itself in every interaction you have. And I wish I'd heard that when I was like 10, when I was growing up.
And as much as it is your interactions and your engagement with people, the work you're doing itself, plumbing, making films, writing, whatever, the work itself also matters to God, not just how you do it.
And that's a harder theological concept to explain briefly, but it's in
Futureville. And it's not just for today, it is for the world to come, eternity. Well, I have one last question.
Yeah, what?
Are you going to be speaking at these other things? No, because I will say I'd never heard your story before. Like, I read the book.
And now you have.
But hearing it, I was convicted sort of about the way that I think about things. So if you've never read Phil's book or if you've never seen him talk, I highly encourage you to do that. It's different than like this sort of
We don't know yet if Phil will or will not be at some of these future events, but
he might talk me into some of this.
I would recommend it highly because you were kind of good.
Thanks, Christian. What should I sing about? Work or gays or
gay
Can't
world.
you do them all?
Gay world
movies?
Vision.
Okay. Oh, World Vision has made a decision that they're going to employ the gays to do their relief work, and that has made some Christians cranky. They're giving them the business,
the spanky,
because they don't want to see the gays carrying rice to the poor. And that's weird. Makes me kind of sad,
and not be able to sing.
Though it should make me feel pretty glad that everybody wants to help out and be like Jesus at work with their liturgy when they're performing surgery.
Oh no! Now we're going off the rails.
Plumbing gleefully. So go to Skye's conference in Minneapolis.
Wow.
Oh,
Bye.
Lord, bye, everybody.
You guys.